Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's live stream for the preview of Chelsea versus Tottenham in the London derby at Stamford Bridge on Sunday afternoon. But before we get into that, please do smash a like on this video and please do click that subscribe button. If you're watching and you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. On the road to 300 subscribers by the end of this month. So every little helps. So as I said, please do press that subscribe button. As you can see, I'm joined by a special guest today. It's a privilege to be joined by freelance journalist Nischal Patel. Hopefully I've not butchered that too badly. Apologies if I have. Great to have you on the channel. Really appreciate you giving up your time. Obviously, Chelsea head into this weekend on the poor run of form. 3 wins in our last 11 in the Premier League. No win in our last 4. And a really poor performance in midweek against Brighton. We're kind of, in a space of a month, gone from title challenge to in a race for the top 4 now. And if Spurs and other teams around them were to win their games in hand, I know it's big ifs, but they would, move above us potentially or very close. So, Nischal, what are your thoughts on the current issues? Because this weekend, it's always must win against Tottenham, but this one's imperative that we win.
First of all, thanks for having me on the channel. Looking forward to getting into it and previewing the game. It's never quiet when you're supporting Chelsea and following the club. It's always something going on, whether it's Lukaku off the pitch or form on the pitch. And right now, our form has just been woeful. You can see the wins in the League Cup getting to the final, in the FA Cup getting to the 4th round. But if you look specifically at the Premier League, 1 win in 7 games is not good enough. And we've gone from being top of the Premier League on the 1st of December to being 3rd, 12 points off the top, and possibly growing that gap with City having games in hand, Liverpool having games in hand. And it's getting more and more serious. And, there's so many issues you can look at. Lukaku's one, which I'll always draw to first, because that's not just had an impact on him, but the entire team. The attack is misfiring. We're really missing our wing-backs. I saw a great point earlier, someone saying that the equivalent of us missing Chilwell and James is of Liverpool missing Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. And when you put it in that perspective, you realise just how much we're struggling. And it's a huge, huge game. It's always massive against Spurs. And I usually go into these games confidently, and I am. I still think we can beat Spurs and we can win. But you look at the form, our recent form, Spurs' recent form, still unbeaten in the league. They just won against Leicester in the last 2 minutes of the game. And you see that threat and what they're building up, and you think, well, actually, we can't be too worried, not to mention we're in awful form. But on the other hand, yes, we've beaten them twice this month already. Pretty commanding and convincing performances as well. So we can't rule anything out, but I'm sure all Chelsea fans are really nervous because on one hand, we've got awful form, but on the other hand, if that form continues with dropping points or worse, losing to Spurs, there's going to be serious, serious questions and even more toxic atmosphere around the club right now.
Yeah, it's I can't really put my finger on it. There's a number of issues that are kind of obvious. Obviously, the whole Lukaku thing is kind of obviously the interview's been dealt with, etc. But I think it's probably had more of an impact on the dressing room as a whole as perhaps has been let on by the club. I think there's probably a lot of the playing squad probably fairly disappointed with what happened in that interview. And, really, obviously since the turn of that interview, the form's not been great. The form wasn't great before it anyway. So I think it's slightly unfair to pin the poor form recently on that interview, but it certainly hasn't helped. But just in general, the attack looks terrible. We've since I think 2019, we spent £300 million on attacking players, the likes of Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, Lukaku, Pulisic, Ziyech. And you could almost argue we've actually got worse going forward. We could be one of the only teams that spends £300 million on attacking players to actually get worse. I've talked on the channel before about, for me, it looks like one of the main issues with the attack is the transitions from midfield to attack. I think we're far too slow getting the ball forward from midfield. There's a number of opportunities in games gone by, particularly Brighton, where, if we'd released the ball quicker, we could have been in dangerous situations to potentially create opportunities to score. And everything's just so slow. I love the likes of Jorginho and N'Golo Kante, but moving the ball quickly is not really their game. Jorginho's one to take, a few extra touches. It slows it down, and those opportunities are gone. How much of a problem do you think it is, the link between the midfield and the attack, to why we're having perhaps a lot of issues going forward? I feel that we massively miss a creative midfield player. I know in a double six pivot we play at the moment in this system, it doesn't really give you license to have someone like a Cesc Fabregas or a Juan Mata that we've seen so successful over the years. We haven't got someone that can pick a pass out. I mean, is that one of the main problems for you? Do you just feel like a severe lack of creativity from the midfield too is kind of contributing to the attack looking so poor?
I wouldn't say a lack of creativity from the midfield, because whatever formation we play, we're going to be losing something and gaining something else. You have to remember that in a way, we're almost playing with 5 attackers. You've got the whole front three as well as the wing backs. And yes, I do think we're lacking that creative midfielder in the middle, the likes of Fabregas, the likes of Mata, the likes of Hazard will need playing behind. But for me, the issue I see is the attack are just scared to take defences on. You see the same thing every game. We'll get to the final third and we'll just stop. We'll pass it around the third, we'll pass it backwards, we won't go forward, and we're missing that cutting edge and that almost that fear factor of wanting to go forward and attack. And that goes down to front three. Yes, it would massively help if we had a creative midfielder. Of course, that would require a formation change, and that wouldn't necessarily make sense for me right now, switching from the 3-4-3, which has delivered so well for us. But you look at the front three, and we've got 2 attacking forwards on the inside, either the side of a striker. They're the ones who should be creating chances and making stuff happen, putting balls in the box for our striker, getting crosses in, taking on the defence. But they're not. You watch the likes of Hudson-Odoi, of Ziyech, of Pulisic, and they seem scared and reluctant to take defences on, and that's where we're lacking. We get the ball forward pretty well and pretty quickly when Kante or Kovacic drive forward, when our wing-backs are making runs. That's not our issue for me. The issue for me is what we do when we get into our final third. We get in and we're like, actually, no, let's go backwards and start again. Sometimes that works when you feel like you need to start the move again, get back to that transition and move the ball up gradually and take your time to do it. But it just seems like we get the ball forward so much, and we spend a lot of time in the final third, but we do nothing. We can have about 40% of the game stuck in the final third of the opposition, but only get about 2 shots on target and none even, challenging the goalkeeper. And you have so many of these issues which add up, which don't even make sense, because the attackers aren't bad. We've spent hundreds of millions of pounds on the attackers that we have, and the likes of Lukaku, Ziyech, Pulisic, Werner, but none of them look like they want to take on the defence. And you compare them to the likes of Hazard, Willian, Costa in the last title-winning season, and you think, what's different? We've spent more money. These are arguably better individuals, but they're just not delivering. And it's a shame, because it continues a cycle of us thinking we need to spend another 50 million on a forward. We'll speak about it later in the video. Usman Dembele is one of many forwards being linked to us. But what would that actually do? Just continue the cycle, keep us stuck in this never-ending cycle, in this never-ending situation of having talented individuals, but not being a strong and efficient attacking side in the final third, like the Liverpools, like the Manchester Cities. And that's what draws us and makes us different to those teams you can challenge for the title.
I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about him. Everyone talks about him. It's a little bit boring to keep speaking about Lukaku, but I'd be interested to get your thoughts. Initially, going back to when we signed him, were you excited that we brought him back to the club? And having seen how it's unfolded, what are your thoughts on him? Do you feel he's a detriment to the team? Do you think he improves the team? I know it's difficult. He's been out, 8 weeks injured, COVID, etc. as well. And he's found it hard to gel into the team. It's perhaps not the system he was expecting when he arrived. What are your overall thoughts on Lukaku and what he gives to this current Chelsea side?
Look, aside from the last month, I like Lukaku. I think he's a great signing. We needed to buy a striker. We needed to bring someone in, and we did that. And he started really well, and he looked like he was the final piece of a puzzle in getting a world-class striker and being able to challenge for the title. But that feels like a long time ago. And unfortunately, my focus and my feelings of Lukaku are all based on what's happened over the last month, and I'm not happy with him. I've not been enjoying watching him or not wanting to see him play whatsoever. And I don't think he's been playing well either. I don't think his heart nor his head is in it right now. You see the way he plays. He doesn't try. He doesn't work off the ball. And you can give, some benefit of the doubt in the fact that he's not getting any service. He's rarely getting the ball and he's stuck in the middle. But on the other hand, he should be working. He should be giving his all and trying to make a difference and trying to get the ball rather than just being static in the middle of a park, surrounded by huge defenders and not getting involved in the game. And truthfully, he only has himself to blame for the issues off the pitch, with the interview, with the comments, with everything that's gone on, and the debacle that's gone on around the Liverpool game and beforehand, and on the pitch where he's not been performing, he's not been good enough, and he's not working with the team. And he's already said he doesn't like the system, he doesn't fit the system. That's all well and good. But if you're not making an effort to fit into that system, and you're not making an effort to adapt to that system, then you've only got yourself to blame. Look at players like Azpilicueta, Pulisic, all those sorts of players, even Mount, haven't played out position in certain games, but they get on with it. They still give it their all. They still work hard and try to contribute to the team. Lukaku, on the other hand, he's just complaining. He's going on, oh, I don't like this. Inter would treat me better. I wouldn't have us at Inter. And he's not putting in his all. And he doesn't look like he wants to play for us right now. The Brighton game was a perfect example where he was pretty non-existent, didn't really do anything in the game, didn't offer anything. And then when he was coming off, he was booed off by the fans. And I don't blame him. I didn't boo him. I was applauding when I saw the subs were being made. I saw it was him and I just stopped because I thought, why should I applaud someone who's not doing anything or not playing for the team? And everyone else booed. And I completely get that. Completely understand why people are booing him. So for Lukaku, he's got to save his career at this point. He's got to save his Chelsea career because realistically, can we sell him? I don't think so. How are we going to make a profit on a £100 million striker? Who can afford him? Who's going to want him at this stage of his career, apart from Inter, who can barely afford him and had to sell him for that reason? We're stuck with him right now. He needs to take responsibility, look at his game, look at his form, look at everything surrounding himself and think, how can I improve myself? How can I make myself better? How can I offer more to the team? It's down to Lukaku to make a difference and save his Chelsea career.
I mean, and what do you think about, there's a section of Chelsea fans. I mean, I've said it over the past, few weeks as well, that, that Chelsea don't play to Lukaku's strengths. I know it's got to be a balance of the two. He's got to do more to work into our current system. And I suppose we've got to do more to make the most of him. There was a match of the day analysis of Lukaku when we played Manchester City away last weekend, where there were several occasions where Lukaku was in a good position, making a good run, and players aren't picking out his runs. Obviously, there's not much you can do about that as a forward. You can put yourselves in the right positions, but if the ball doesn't come to you, ultimately, there's not a lot you can do. There were several occasions where that did happen. There's perhaps several occasions where, it feels like that maybe, teammates aren't looking to get the ball to him, etc. What do you think about that trail of thought? And do you feel that Chelsea are playing to Lukaku's strengths at the moment?
It's difficult to say. I think there are a lot of occasions where he's not getting the ball, he's not getting the chances he wants, and we're not always playing to his strengths. He's playing as a hold-up striker, which personally I think he's done really well in the past for us, and he's done that really efficiently this season. But on the other hand, you can't play to one player's strengths. I don't think that's feasible, and that implies that we're a one-man team and we're only relying on one player, and that's not how we should be. What made us a really strong team after Hazard left was the fact that we weren't relying on one player. It wasn't give it to Hazard and hope for the best. It was the fact that we were playing as a team. And you look at the Champions League where there wasn't one standout player, but a team of collective players who played together, who worked together, who did everything together. That's why we won the Champions League. If we're going to try to play to one player's strengths, we won't do anything. We will not win anything. He has to play for the team rather than the team playing for him. That's the way I see it. And that goes down to him, his work on the training ground, how he plays with the outside forwards and the wingers and everyone around him. And we can't tailor to one player's needs, because if we do that, we'll get into the same reliance phase that we had with Hazard. And then when Lukaku leaves, we're going to be stuck with that transition again, where we're trying to learn how to not rely on one player and play as a team again. We've already done that under Tuchel, and we can't let that change from being a collective team and being a team that plays together, even if we have Lukaku in the team playing up front.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right. No, as they always say, no player's bigger than the club. We can't, he's not so important to us right now that we have to, bow down to all his needs and make it work. We've seen that we can play well without him, perhaps look a bit more fluid. I think that's mainly because we're more used to kind of not playing with a proper forward, because we did it throughout the majority of last season. I mean, just last thing on Lukaku before we move on. I know it's probably quite a difficult question to answer. Ultimately, do you think this is going to work out for Chelsea? Because we've seen so often over the years. I mean, I've followed the club for a long time now, and realistically, you get excited when a centre forward comes, but when you look back at it, last 17, 18 years, we've signed the likes of Shevchenko, Torres, etc. The only centre forwards that have worked are Drogba and Costa, and we've signed loads of others, and they've all flopped. If I had to ask you now, what do you think is going to happen for Lukaku in his second Chelsea career? Do you feel it's going to work out for the club?
I hope so. I really hope so. Right now, I don't see how it would work with the toxicity around the club, with the controversy that Lukaku's created, with the dilemmas and the tension he's created. Right now, I don't see a way out, but I hope there is. I really hope there is. And the only reason that I see there being a future is that I don't see the club selling him or moving him on, because he's the club record signing. We've spent £100 million on one striker to bring him back to fix that hole. And if we got rid of Lukaku, the only other striker realistically in the market is Haaland. And, he's going to have about 10 clubs vying for him. And we can't place all our bets on getting that one world-class striker, bringing him in and getting rid of Lukaku. You have to think about wages. You have to think about sign-in fees. You have to think about bonuses and all sorts of that. And I do hope it works for Lukaku. I really do. But right now, I don't see where that happens. And it will take time. And it's going to take time to heal this and fix this. And hopefully we go into next season where everything's been sorted out. We've seen a change in heart. We've seen a better, more improved, more dedicated Lukaku. And we can finally get on with what we need to be doing, which is having a world-class team with a world-class striker ahead of it. But right now, I don't see a way out. And that's down to Lukaku to fix it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was excited when he came back. Like I think a lot of Chelsea fans were, the goal scorer we need, proven striker in all the leagues, proven in the Premier League, over 100 Premier League goals, for the likes of United, West Brom, Everton, etc. But, obviously since the interview thing, the injury, etc., every week that goes by, I'm just a little bit unsure as to whether this is actually going to work out. The last few weeks, it's not been good. It's not just him. I think it's fair to say he's an easy scapegoat at the moment because of the interview. He's not really got the fans on side because of that. So he's an easy target to hit out against when things aren't going well. But ultimately, if you're looking at it right now, it's quite hard to see how this situation improves. But, I think we just need to get through the remainder of this season, reassess in the summer, really find out, does he actually want to be here? So at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to be here, even if he has to take a bit of a financial hit, you want players that are committed to the cause. So ultimately, if we get to the summer and he decides he wants to move on, then I think we just have to accept that. But I mean, back to the game then. Formation's another talk that's been, we've been switching between the 3-4-3 and a 4-2-2, which we first saw in the first leg of that Carabao Cup semi-final against Spurs. That was perhaps more down to the fact of lack of defenders available to go with a five at the back. But what have you made of the 4-2-2? We saw it in both legs against Tottenham. We saw it against Brighton on Wednesday night, which was awful. Not necessarily the system's fault, but it was awful. Do you like this 4-2-2? Do you think it's something we're going to see more of from now until the end of the season?
I don't mind it. It's an interesting new formation. It's kind of a mix of playing that 3-4-3 and that 4-3-3. In fact, we've still got that midfield pivot. We've still got that attack and threat, and we've still got that back four. So it's almost like a mix of everything that's been working. And, it's worked well. It's looked really good in periods, but it's also looked flat, and it's looked like we're missing what we need. And I think the main reason we're playing it is the same reason we start playing a back four at the start of the month, which is injuries. And the fact we're missing our two key wing backs, we were missing, other options, and we didn't really have many options. So I do still prefer the 3-4-3. I still think that's what plays to our strengths. That's what's worked for us best. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But on the other hand, I completely understand, and I think I agree with the fact that we can be versatile going into a back four when we're missing our wing backs of Chilwell and James. So it's worked well. And in terms of Spurs on Sunday, I would stick with back three purely because I know Spurs will play that, and I think we're stronger sticking to what works. And we've seen what's happened when we've tried to switch our formation to something new against a new opposition. The main example that sticks out is a 3-5-2 against Manchester City at the start of the season in September. And obviously we were dominated. You've seen City do the exact same for us, trying to match us with a back three, and it's not worked for them at all. And I just want to stick with what's working for us for these important games, because as much as it's down to form and collective players and individual issues and whatnot, it is also a key part of what sort of tactic, what sort of formation we're playing. And if we can give ourselves a chance of maximizing chances of victory by just sticking to what's worked, staying loyal to the formation that served Tuchel and served Chelsea so well, I don't see why we should switch from that. So, the 4-2-2-2 is great to play. It's a really good option to have. And I think it's something that we can look at and we can turn to in the future. But in terms of Sunday, I'd like to see stick with back through.
Yeah, I think it's great for the team to be, competent in multiple systems. So, if you feel tactically when you're playing another side that actually the 4-2-2 matches up better, then at least we know we're competent in that. I feel at the moment, obviously 3-4-3 is our main system. The 4-2-2 we've seen a handful of times. It's looked okay, as you said, in patches. Other times it's looked a little bit off, but it's good that we've got that option there. We've also got the option of the 3-5-2. And I think it's really important if you're building a side that you can be competent in multiple systems, because you just don't know when you're going to need to switch it up, whether through injuries, through tactical stuff, or through the opposition you're playing. So, I mean, I do like it, but ultimately, we've not really been tested in it. The first leg of the Carabao Cup, Spurs were awful. Second leg, they weren't much better. And then against Brighton, we were awful. So we didn't really get to see it at its full potential. But I guess with the two up front, we haven't got two centre forwards. So, it's always going to be someone out of position. I know they're still playing in an attacking position, but it's not really a proper front two. It's always going to be Lukaku or someone else who is not really a 9. So there's potentially that issue as well. But I mean, I like it, but I agree with you. I'd like to probably see the 3-4-3 this weekend. I just wanted to talk about Chelsea's home form this season. Obviously, games at Stamford Bridge over the years, you've had a fantastic home record. Most notably, I think record 65 games, I think it was, unbeaten in the Premier League.
I think.
Was it 86, was it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Unbeaten in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge through Jose Mourinho. This season, home form has been a real problem. We've actually taken less points at home this season than we have on the road. We've seen a number of costly draws against the likes of, your Burnleys, Man United, who were poor at the time, Everton, etc., Brighton as well, who outplayed us completely across both games, in fact. What are you concerned about our home form, and what do you put it down to? Because obviously Stamford Bridge has been known as such a fortress, but we've been dropping a lot of points there recently.
I am concerned, but I don't know what to put it down to. Usually, with home form, obviously you expect us to be on the other hand. We've always had a notoriously good home record, like you mentioned. You've got the home support, and you've got stadium full of Chelsea fans. Part of me doesn't want to say it like this, but it feels like when Chelsea aren't going well, I assume if you're going to matches and all, part of something you see at Chelsea is like when we're not playing well, or when you have a misplaced pass or a mistake, you hear a collective groan around the stadium. And I think partly when the team are already playing badly in these home games, it reflects on the fans, and therefore we're almost both kind of dragging each other down. And that's not to blame the fans, that's not to blame the players or the team. But you do notice that the atmosphere always get a bit more mellow. Everyone's kind of angry and on edge and feeling really pent up with anger. And then you have the opposition team, obviously, who are going to thrive on our poor form and our poor performance, backing each other and getting confidence from seeing, look, Chelsea, the champions of Europe, we're away to home to them. They're not playing well, and we can capitalise on this. So I feel like it starts with possibly complacency from Chelsea, or it goes down to so many issues. Burnley was obviously a free game, but it was a case of not taking our chances and being really wasteful. Everton as well was a case of not playing well, wasting chances, and then being complacent in defence. Brighton, we played well for the first half an hour, but then got dominated for an hour at home. And, you have all these different issues that we've seen with Chelsea across all the games. And I wouldn't necessarily put it down to one outstanding issue, but I think it's a combination of things where our home form was just being poor. And it doesn't make sense to me when you really look at it. But that's, if you had to ask me, and that's what I'm saying, it comes down to a lot of little things. The collective issues you've had, the toxicity that can exist, and also that complacency where you think you're at home, you think you're a bigger team, but then it gives you a away team the confidence to come and think we can snatch something from this. And you've seen so many drop points at the bridge where we've just not been up for it. So it comes down to complacency at the end of the day for me. And you compare it to Liverpool, who have been really good at Anfield recently. City have only lost, I think, one game all season at the Etihad, which was against Crystal Palace. And they just get the job done. They know they're a stronger team and they deliver on that. Whereas for us, it's mentality, it's complacency, it's being so easy and allowing the away team to get into it. It's a combination of things, and it's hard to pin it down to one thing. That's the truth.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely a combination of factors. But yeah, it's a little bit of a worry because, over the years, you go into a game at Stamford Bridge, you're like, well, we're definitely going to win this. Or Having said that, we've not lost a lot of games this season. We're just drawing so many matches, and you actually, on the balance of it, you look back at those matches, and all right, we didn't deserve anything from the 2 Brighton games, but the other ones, we should have beaten Burnley, we should have beaten Man United, we should have beaten Everton. There's games that we could have easily won, but obviously, familiar story, not clinical in that final third of the pitch. I know we shouldn't really talk about Tottenham, but I just want to briefly, get your thoughts on them. We played them earlier in the season under Nuno. They were dreadful, looked all over the place. They got obviously our former manager Antonio Conte in, and obviously we knocked them out of the cup quite easily in the semi-finals. But in the Premier League, it's been a little bit different for them. Conte unbeaten since he arrived in the Premier League, and they look a lot better now than when Nuno was there. What have you made of Tottenham since Conte's arrival? Because obviously under Nuno, they are really struggling. And do you feel they pose a threat on Sunday?
They'll always pose a threat to us. Whether we're the stronger team, whether we've been better this season, you can't ignore the facts that they are a better team under Conte. They're unbeaten in the league. And it's a scary thought, but if they win all their games in hand, they're going to overtake us. So Sunday is even more crucial in maintaining our position in the games where we're going away, in the FA Cup, in the Club World Cup, the weekend of the Carabao Cup final where Spurs will still be playing a league game. Those stretch of games next month will be crucial, and we need to make sure we give ourselves a maximum advantage over Spurs and even over Arsenal, who we've got a rearranged fixture against going into that break. And Spurs have looked really good, credit to him, but in the 3 games we've played them this season, they've been awful. The first game under Nuno, they were all right in the first half, didn't threaten us much, and then second half we blew them away. First leg of a League Cup semi-final, they were awful, and the game was wrapped up inside half an hour, and the last hour was a formality. The away leg at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I would argue, was their best performance against us, and even then wasn't enough against us. They still lost 3-0 in aggregate. They still weren't great, but they did threaten us a bit more. They did show more signs of what they can do under Antonio Conte, what they're capable of. So we should be wary of them. They're not a team that we should ignore, and we've also seen a recent threat against Leicester, like I said earlier, coming back and winning a game like that late on, however much you want to attribute that to Leicester's poor form and bottling it, fair play to Spurs if you're winning a game like that. They do have that threat. They are a good enough team to challenge us and give us a game, but we have a strong record against them. We've already played them twice this month. We know what we're coming up against, but you don't know which Spurs could come up and turn up. It could be the classic Spursy performance where they're poor and we beat them 5-0. It could be a really spirited Spurs performance where they're really up for it. They know where they stand in the league. They know the form they're in, and they know that a win would be crucial in trying to overtake us with their games in hand. So they're not a team to underestimate, but I do still fancy us to beat Spurs. It's a 1 game of the season, but regardless of how the season's gone, whether it's a 10th place finish in 2016 or a title winning season the next year, it is the 1 game we are always up for. We always want to win, and we always give 100% for, and I expect nothing less this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a massive plus. Obviously, no Son available either, one of their most dangerous attackers. That's going to help us out. They've obviously got other players that can step in. We've seen the likes of Lucas Moura do very well. Steven Bergwijn with 2 goals against Leicester the other night. We struggled recently, as we know. Before we get onto picking our lineup, what do you feel that we're going to have to do differently to beat Spurs that we've not been doing in recent weeks in the Premier League? Because however you dress it up, 3 wins in 11, none in the last 4, 1 in the last 7, whatever you want to look at it, the form's dreadful. We've had, I think since the start of November, we've won 1 more game in the league than Norwich. That's not good enough. We're better than that. Well, we are better than that, but we haven't shown it. What do you think that we need to do differently to get back to winning ways? Because ultimately, I take a result over performance all day long at the moment. But what do you think we need to change to get back to winning ways?
It comes down to picking the best team and some of the basics of football. I know it sounds really cliche to say that, but when you're starting the likes of Ziyech and Pulisic, and then we have, you started up against City and we were awful in attack, that shouldn't be a surprise. You should be playing the strongest teams, going with what's worked, and trying to channel what we've done so well for the majority of the season, playing with strong players, going for what's worked so well, and just being brave in attack. I don't want to see us passing it around the final third against Spurs, and I don't think we will, because we mainly do that against low block teams. You look at Brighton the other day, for example, and because they defend so well, not that it's an excuse, but it's an explanation for why Chelsea are happy to pass it around side to side, waiting for a breakthrough. Whereas Spurs, there's a lot more opportunities to break through, take advantage, and really capitalise on empty spaces. We've seen that against Spurs this season. We've seen them against other teams who are more frail in defence. So we just have to stay true to what's been working for us. Going forward, attacking fearlessly, and dominating the game and playing how we've played. And everyone will be up for it. I'm sure about the fans will be up for it, the players will be up for it. But it cannot be the same performance or same mentality going into a game like Brighton, like Liverpool, like City, where we think, yeah, we'll be okay. Let's just be normal and take it calm. We have to go for it. We have to take advantage. We cannot keep putting in these performances that we've been doing recently. And that comes down to a lot of personnel. You know, I don't want to see the likes of Lukaku or Pulisic or Ziyech starting because they're not our strongest players right now. We need to be playing the players who want to be playing for us right now, who are going to be given 100% and are going to be working hard. And a lot of these are kind of givens, they're cliches. But if you look at our recent performances and our recent results, you have to ask, are we doing any of that? And I would say no. So going back to the basics, which saw us win the Champions League, that saw us be top of the league, that saw us win 3-0 away to Spurs. Just sticking to the basics, sticking to what's worked so well for us this season, and we'll get the result. If we don't, if we try to overcomplicate things, if we become too complacent, if we allow Spurs to attack us and invite them into the game, we will be the architects of our own downfall. We are crucial in determining and defining how this game goes. It all comes down to us.
Yeah, no, I agree. We approach it with the right mentality, we should get the result. If we approach how we've approached recent games, we're going to be banging trouble. Before we move on to quickly picking our team, I just wanted to get your thoughts very briefly on the January transfer window. I've spoken a lot about the window so far on the channel. Still no left wing backs come in, or no wing back of any description. My main issue of this is the fact that the club have known about this Ben Chilwell situation since November. They kind of rolled the dice a little bit, thinking he might not need the surgery, when I think in reality they probably knew all along he did need it. My big problem is why there was it appears there was no planning in getting this situation sorted. You know, from my perspective, we should have been drawing up a shortlist as soon as that injury happened, getting in contact with relevant agents or however transfer works these days, and someone should have been in the door in the first week to 10 days of January. Yet what are we now? January 21st. We're like 21 days into the window, and nothing's happened. You know, we're linked with Usman Dembele, and we've been linked with Serginho Dest, but that's gone a bit quiet in recent days. And we have actually agreed a fee for a left back, but I'm just going to bring it up on the screen now. But it's not for the first team. It's Derby County's Dylan Williams, but it's, according to Nischal Patel, it's to fix a problem position at left wing back in the academy team. So obviously we are looking at a left wing back there, Dylan Williams. I've got to be honest, I don't know too much about him. What are your thoughts on the January window so far, and the fact it looks like we're fixing issues in the academy team before fixing issues in the first team?
No, I don't blame us approaching Dylan Williams to the academy. We have struggled in that position this season. We've had to play with the likes of Harvey Vale there, and it's the equivalent of playing Hudson-Odoi as a wing back, where he's out of position, he's not getting the most out of him, and it's not the best transfer. So, you know, that aside, sure, I understand us fixing that issue. But on your point of the board needing to act straight after Chilwell, completely agree. We've known since the 23rd of November that he had some sort of injury. And regardless of what was going to happen, we knew that in 6 weeks' time, we could bring someone in. Most fans, once we found out it was an ACL issue, surely you'd realise that he wasn't going to be back in January. Surely that's common knowledge that, you know, he's not going to be back in 6 weeks from an ACL, because that doesn't happen. You don't come back from an injury that quickly of that sort. And when Chilwell was injured, we should have started looking at options. Like you said, you know, there's time. It's not just that as soon as January 1st happens, then we're allowed to start looking. That's when we make the business happen. But we need to be planning ahead. And it's such a basic thing. When you've got fans saying, let's start looking at options, we can't survive with one wing back the whole year, especially when our formation and our tactics is so focused on playing wing backs. And now we've got 10 days left, and we're currently looking like we're going to have Alonso and Aspi as our wing backs for the final half of the season. And it's ridiculous. Like, the winger situation is another one. That's our second priority. But if we don't get to January 31st and we haven't brought in a new wing back, whether it's recalling Emerson, bringing Serginho Dest, anyone like that. If we haven't brought someone in, I don't understand what the club are doing, because Alonso can't play every single game for eternity. Chilwell won't be back for season. We know that. And even if we do try playing the season, it is going to be a huge, huge risk. Alonso needs support. And, I wouldn't object to bring back Emerson if we have to spend money. What can you do in that sense? I think it would be a bummer if we have to spend £4 million to get our own player back. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Same with Serginho Dest. We've got to spend for him. Luca Digne, that's already gone. He's off to Villa. Clubs are acting. Clubs know what they're doing. You look at clubs like Villa, who have a transfer strategy. Arsenal have been doing things. Tottenham, all these clubs have known what they need to be doing, bringing in players, offloading players. But what we're doing, we're calling Kennedy, and I don't care about Kennedy coming back. Kennedy's not going to be playing a wing back for us, and he shouldn't be. I don't understand it, and it's worrying, because what this transfer window is pointed to is a repeat of 2018. I don't know if you remember it, but it's a window where we brought in the likes of Olivier Giroud, Ross Barkley, Emerson, those sort of players. And it was just such a weird window because we didn't really tick any of us boxes. We got Giroud in, and that was the only signing that, in my opinion, has worked. But then Barkley and Emerson and those sort of players, it was pointless. And right now, that's where it looks like we're going. Because not only have we not signed anyone, but it doesn't look like we're in talks with anyone, or no one has said or come out saying that we're linked with this player and we're strongly linked and we're in negotiations. There's nothing. And we've got to get that sorted. And hopefully after Spurs, because of course we haven't got a game for two weeks, hopefully that is full steam, full focus on getting a wing back in. Maybe look at wingers as well if you've got time or you've got resources. But the absolute priority has to be getting a left wing back. And if we don't do that, we're going to be in for a really, really tough few months finishing off the season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're banging trouble if no one comes in. It doesn't look like anyone's coming in, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But it's hard to have faith in the board to be doing something decent with their kind of recent record of signings and how they conduct their business. But you just never know. But just quickly before we pick a team, Usman Dembele, very brief thoughts on that. Thomas Tuchel likes the player. He said that, said as much in the press conference today. Obviously only worked for a season together with him, likes to have worked with him for longer. Contractual issues at Barcelona. Director coming out yesterday saying that he's not going to play again. They expect to sell him by the end of this month. Not expected to be in the Barcelona squad for their match against Athletic Bilbao at the weekend. Do you like him? And do you think that, if Thomas Tuchel wants him, we back him, we trust the judgment, and instead of letting this go to a bit of an auction in the summer as a free agent, we spend the £15 million and get him now? We've bought the likes of Ross Barkley in before for £15 million in January. No one seemed to bat an eyelid at that. What are your thoughts on the Dembele situation quickly?
Two things to say. He's a very talented footballer and he's shown what he's capable of. He scored against us 4 years ago in the Champions League. He's a good footballer. He has so much talent. Secondly, if Tuchel wants him, that's what he wants, and the board and the fans should be backing him if that's the player he wants. But look at our three wingers right now. We've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, we've got Hakim Ziyech, and we've got Christian Pulisic. Ziyech is injury prone and inconsistent. Pulisic is injury prone and inconsistent. Hudson-Odoi is injury prone and inconsistent. Not to mention that he's still kind of getting over the fear factor of that Achilles injury and the ACL injury, that he had a few years ago. So now we've got three wingers who are inconsistent and injury prone. Why would we bring in a fourth winger who's inconsistent and injury prone? It would be a stupid, stupid move, in my opinion. Not to mention, he would charge obscene wages. We'd be stuck with another attacker who's inconsistent, struggling with injuries, and may not necessarily fix our problems. He's someone who would not fix that issue. Just because he worked with Tuchel a few years ago doesn't mean that he should come and he should be reunited with Tuchel. Kurzawa was linked to us like a week ago, but Tuchel didn't like him and he didn't want him. Just because they worked together doesn't mean he should come back. So it is a hard, hard no for me for Usman Dembele. There's no way. And if he does come, of course I'll back him. That's what I always do. If there are players who I didn't want to sign, but we do, I will still back them because I'm a fan and I'm going to support our players. But logically, logistically, does not make sense. Do not sign Usman Dembele for me.
Okay, we're going to now move into picking a team. So we'll just fire through this. Obviously, pretty straightforward in goal. Edouard Mendy still at the African Cup of Nations with Senegal. So Kepa is obviously going to continue in the sticks. How impressed have you been with Kepa and his kind of renaissance continuing under Thomas Tuchel? And he's been, missing Mendy for these last few matches hasn't been as big as an issue as perhaps we might have expected it to be. I mean, Kepa's form has been really good, and he's kind of Tuchel's done really well with his man management skills to kind of breathe new life into Kepa. How impressed with him have you been?
Really impressed, and I'm really proud of him as well for coming back into the forefront and performing well. You look at so many key moments across the season. He will help win the Super Cup for us. He's had big saves. He's been in penalty shootout wins in the League Cup, and he's been superb this season. And I cannot praise him enough for getting back into it, showing us what he's capable of, and showing us a player that we knew existed before, the talented young Spanish goalkeeper can perform well. And I hope it continues. He's done really well under Tuchel. And I hope he gets his chance. Obviously, he'll keep getting it for a few more weeks. I hope he gets a chance in the League Cup final, in FA Cup, and so forth. But he's been brilliant, and I'm very, very proud of him that he's got to this situation.
Obviously, team news is exactly the same squad as Brighton. Chalobah is not going to make this game. Neither is Christensen with COVID, and obviously James and Chilwell are still out. James is back in individual training, but Tuchel saying that he's still a long way from rejoining the squad. So we're going with a back three, as we discussed earlier. So, I mean, for me, it's obviously going to be Rudiger, providing everyone's fit, which they should be, Rudiger, Thiago Silva. And then in this third slot, it depends if we go with a winger at wing back, or do you feel they're going to stick with Azpilicueta at right wing back and we'll go with Malang Sarr back into that back three?
I would stick with Azpi at right centre back, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't particularly like seeing Azpi as a wing back, especially against dangerous teams who have strong attacking players. Not to say Spurs are always like that, but I wouldn't want to see Azpi come up against a top 6 team as a wing back. He's a great player, but he's much more placed and he's much more comfortable as centre back. And obviously that adds the issue of who do we put our wing back. And it will be Pulisic, it will be Hudson-Odoi, one of the two. I don't really mind. I'd probably go for Hudson-Odoi at right wing back, but I wouldn't object to Sarr playing at centre back and Azpi moving forward, but I would prefer Azpi at right centre back. I think he's stronger there. I think he offers us more there, and he's more stable and he's more at home when he's playing in that back three rather than bombing forward and being caught out of position because of his pace.
I mean, do you think that? I mean, I feel there's an opportunity for Malang Sarr to come back into the lineup and start this game. He's impressed, in recent performances against City. I thought he was decent. He was pretty good in the 2 legs against Tottenham. Azpi has been okay in recent weeks. We played a lot more football than he was expecting. Do you think Malang Sarr's got a shout to start in this game?
Absolutely. He's played really well recently. He played well against Spurs in both legs. And like I said, I wouldn't object to him starting. Yeah. I just think if we're looking at the strongest team, Azpi comes back into that back three, and you look at that back three, there's not a weakness there. Whereas if you do have Sarr, yes, he's been playing really well recently, but he is also the least experienced, the youngest, and arguably the weak spot. Obviously, the weak spot in the defence. So I wouldn't object to him playing, but I'd go for Azpi.
Obviously, Hudson-Odoi then at right wing back. I think that makes sense rather than Christian Pulisic. A bit more used to it. And defensively, Hudson-Odoi has got a lot better under Thomas Tuchel. We'll go with that. Left wing back, only one option. Marcos Alonso didn't have a great game against Brighton, but we don't really have any other choices. So Alonso is going to obviously slot in there, and hopefully he can put in a half-decent performance. Moving into the midfield too, we saw Jorginho come in for Kovacic, and he was awful against Brighton, wasn't the only one. We were fully expecting N'Golo Kante to start again in one of those positions. Do you envisage Kovacic coming back into the lineup now, given how poor Jorginho was in the week?
I think we have to play Kovacic in midfield. And, Kante's a given. And something which gives me more reassurance is that, like I said, we haven't got a game for 2 weeks. That next game is a League One opposition in the FA Cup. So it gives us the opportunity to rest a few more of those players. So I'd go for Kante and Kovacic. Jorginho struggled midweek. I won't deny that. He didn't have his best game. Kovacic looked good. Kante looks good. Obviously not enough, and they weren't outstanding. But if we're looking at our strongest team, and that's what I'm going for Spurs, that's my midfield, Kovacic and Kante.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And we're not going to see Saúl Ñíguez, and we probably won't see Ruben Loftus-Cheek either. This is where it gets fun. The front three. We've seen various combinations over the past few weeks and over the course of this season. None of them really working that well at all. we'll try and pick something. We'll start with Mason Mount. Dropped for the dropped or not selected, however you want to phrase it, for the Man City game. Wasn't best pleased about it. Back in the lineup for Brighton. Unfortunately, if you're not pleased with the performance and you're a bit annoyed with the manager for not picking you, you've got to impress in your next opportunity. And unfortunately for Mason, he was awful against Brighton. I've got to be honest, he was terrible. Do you expect him to retain his place? You know, homegrown lad, Tottenham, knows what it means. Do you think he'll be back in the? Do you think he'll keep his place, or maybe find himself on the bench again?
I think he should be starting. And like I said, none of our attackers are really in form or really doing that well. But if there's one consistent, and yeah, he didn't play well against Brighton. He was pretty poor against Brighton. But if there's one consistent in driving our attack forward, instilling that press and instilling that energy, it will be Mount at right wing. And I was thinking about the other two as well. And part of it's process of elimination, to be honest. I don't want to see Lukaku starting, and I don't want to see Ziyech starting, and Hudson-Odoi is already wing back. So I'll put Havertz up top and Timo Werner on the left-hand side. It's a bit of a mismatch in attack, I've got to say. You know, obviously no recognised striker. You've got players playing in different positions and already bad form. But that's the strongest front three for me right now. If you're looking at form, these are players who have, at least when they've played, they've looked all right. And if you look at the other options, we can't have another front three, which involves Pulisic, Ziyech and Lukaku, because it just doesn't work. So, you know, I think you look at this team and it's the strongest one for me. Obviously, some of these players aren't in form, but at the end of the day, what choice do we have? They're still good footballers. They're still a talented squad. But we're going on which gives us the best chance to win and which players are at least playing decently enough and ahead of players who have been awful recently to have and warrant the space in that starting 11.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I feel that. I mean, I probably would pick Lukaku, but I can understand why people don't think he should be picked given his current poor form. And to be honest, no one really deserves to keep their place from Wednesday night in the attack. I mean, I was very surprised that Hakim Ziyech kept his place from City on the previous weekend. But yeah, I think Kai Havertz, having not played for 2 games and then got about 10 minutes against Brighton, I think he probably deserves an opportunity. And when Werner came on as well as a sub, he was the only one that actually picked the ball up and ran with it. He actually stayed wide to that touchline and he did okay. I mean, he didn't have an awful lot to do, but maybe an opportunity from the off is what he needs. We need to try something different because it's not been working in that front three. So a bit of pace, a bit more of a fluid player in Havertz as well. It could definitely be worth a go. But yeah, that's the team obviously we've gone with. We'll have to wait and see what Thomas Tuchel selects. But yeah, guys, as I said, let us know your thoughts in the comments or in the chat if you do anything differently or if you agree with us. Nischal, before we wrap up, just like to get a score prediction from yourself for Sunday's game.
You're thinking about form, you're thinking about how poor we've been, but it's Spurs. We've played well against them. We've beaten them twice already. I would say 2-1 Chelsea. Yeah,
I don't want to be boring and agree, but yeah, I think a 2-1 win for the Blues, and it's vital we win. I mean, I'd take a 1-0 win with an own goal or something ridiculous in off someone's shin. I don't really care how it goes in as long as we win. We just need to win this football match. Nischal, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me. I've got your Twitter handle across the banner and it's linked in the video description. Is that the best place for people to check out your stuff, or is there anywhere else you'd like to direct them to?
Yes, you can find all of my stuff on Twitter at Nischal_SP, and all of my work, whether it's articles, videos, podcasts, you can find on my blog, nishalsblog.com. So that's where you can find all of my work and everything that I'm up to.
Perfect. Yeah, guys, make sure you check that out. I'll link that in the video below as well. From myself, obviously, just make sure you smash a like on this video. Like I said, road to 300 subscribers by the end of this month. So please do subscribe if you haven't already and you're watching and you're not subscribed. Subscribe, it really helps me out. And check out Nishal's work. As always, some great stuff. And hopefully Chelsea can return to winning ways on Sunday. And I'll catch you in the match reaction and player ratings on Sunday straight after the game. So see you then. Cheers, guys.